An alien probe disguised as a comet is about to reach its closest point to our Sun. Is it preparing to slingshot away, or something far more strategic for our solar system? Stay with us as 3i Atlas approaches its critical moment. Subscribe now before the next signal drops. We are watching the sky with great interest. A visitor from another star system is here. It is called 3i Atlas, and in just a few short days, we will witness a key moment in its long journey. This moment is what astronomers call perihelion. It is a simple idea with a big meaning. Perihelion is the point in an object's path where it gets closest to the Sun. For 3i Atlas, this is the big day. Everything about its future could be decided in this single fiery encounter. Imagine you're on a swing set. When you're at the very bottom of the swing, you are moving the fastest. Perihelion is like that. It is the lowest point of the swing for 3i Atlas, where the Sun's gravity pulls it in the hardest and makes it move the fastest. This close pass is more than just a quick hello to our star. It is a moment of huge power and potential. The energy at this point is immense. The Sun's gravity is like a giant invisible hand grabbing 3i Atlas and whipping it around. The speed, the heat, the radiation, all of it peaks at this moment. For a normal comet, this is a dangerous time. The intense heat can cause it to break apart, to lose pieces of itself, or to release huge clouds of gas and dust. We watch to see if it will survive. But for an object that might be more than just a rock, this moment is not a danger. It is an opportunity. This is the single best time for it to change its plan. The journey through our solar system has been long and quiet, but now as it rounds the Sun, it has the chance to do something truly special. This is the moment when a tiny push can have a huge effect. This brings us to a very important idea called the Oberth maneuver. It sounds complicated, but the idea behind it is actually very simple. Think of it as a gravity-powered boost. It is the most efficient way for a spacecraft to change its path, and it can only be done at a moment like this, at perihelion, when the object is moving at its top speed and is deep inside a gravity well. A gravity well is just the area where a big object's gravity is very strong, like the area around our Sun. The Oberth maneuver is all about using your own engine power at the exact right time to get the biggest possible result. It's like timing your jump perfectly on a trampoline. If you jump when the trampoline is already pushing you up, you go much higher. In the same way, if a spacecraft fires its engines at perihelion, it gets a much bigger boost in speed than it would anywhere else. The Sun's gravity is already making 3i Atlas move incredibly fast. If it were a spacecraft and it fired an engine at this point, it would be adding its own power to the huge power it's already getting from the Sun. The result is a massive change in energy. This change can be used to either speed up a lot or slow down a lot. It is the ultimate trick for moving around a solar system without using a lot of fuel. A small burn from an engine, a small push in one direction, can completely change the object's future path. It can turn a path that would leave our solar system into one that stays here forever. This is why the perihelion of 3i Atlas is so important. It is the moment of truth. Will it act like a normal comet and just swing by? Or will it do something unexpected? Will it use this perfect moment to make a change? Let's think about the two main options. The first option is to speed up. By firing an engine in the direction it's already going, 3i Atlas could increase its speed dramatically. This would be like a slingshot effect. It would use the Sun's gravity to fling itself out of our solar system even faster than it came in. It would be on its way to another star, continuing its long journey through the galaxy. This is what we would expect from a natural object that is just passing through. It comes in, gets a gravity boost, and then leaves forever. It is a simple and clean visit. We would watch it go, and that would be the end of the story for us. We would have seen a visitor from afar, and then it would be gone. But there is another option. This option is much more interesting, and it is the one that makes us watch so closely. 3i Atlas could use the Oberth maneuver to slow down. By firing an engine against the direction it is travelling, it could lose a lot of speed. This is called a braking maneuver. If it slows down enough, it will no longer have the speed it needs to escape the Sun's gravity. It would become trapped. It would be captured by our solar system. Instead of flying away forever, it would enter a new orbit around our Sun. It would become a permanent member of our solar system, just like Earth, Mars, or Jupiter. This would be a huge event. It would mean that this visitor from another star is not just visiting, it is planning to stay. This is the core of the mystery. An object from interstellar space has a choice to make. It can fly by and leave, or it can slow down and stay. If it is just a rock or a piece of ice, it has no choice. It will follow the path that gravity has set for it. It will swing around the sun and head back out into the deep darkness of space. But if it is something more, if it is a probe or a ship built by an advanced intelligence, then this is its moment. This is the moment it has been travelling for, perhaps for thousands of years. It would be a deliberate act. It would be a clear signal that its mission in our solar system is just beginning. This is why scientists and skywatchers all over the world are focused on this one event. The next few days will tell us a lot. We will see if 3i Atlas simply continues on its way, or if it makes a move that could change everything we know about our place in the universe. The stage is set. For this critical event, the sun is waiting, and we are watching. The quiet, predictable path of 3i Atlas is about to face its biggest test. As it gets closer and closer to the sun, the forces acting upon it will be at their most extreme. Imagine a race car going into a very sharp banked turn at its highest speed. The driver has to be perfect. Any small mistake, any change in the car's balance could send it spinning out of control. For 3i Atlas, the sun's gravity is that sharp turn. If it is just a comet, a loose collection of ice and rock, this is the moment of greatest danger. The sun's heat could boil away its ice, creating jets of gas that could push it and make it tumble. The sun's gravity could pull it apart, breaking it into smaller pieces. This is what happened to another comet named Atlas back in 2020. It got too close to the sun and completely disintegrated. It fell apart under the pressure. Will 3i Atlas suffer the same fate? Or is it made of something much stronger? If 3i Atlas is an engineered object, a probe, then it was built for this moment. It would be made of materials that can handle the intense heat and radiation. It would be strong enough to withstand the immense gravitational forces. For a probe, this close approach is not a danger to be survived, but a tool to be used. The Oberth maneuver is not just a possibility. It would be the entire point of this part of the journey. Why travel all the way to a star just to fly by it, without taking advantage of the huge energy savings it offers? An intelligent designer would never waste such an opportunity. They would plan their mission around this key event. They would calculate the exact moment, the exact direction, and the exact amount of thrust needed to change their path perfectly. So, as we look at the data, we are not just looking for signs of it breaking up. We are looking for something much more subtle. We are looking for a tiny change in its speed or direction that cannot be explained by natural forces alone. A small, precise burn of an engine would be almost invisible from this distance. We wouldn't see a giant flame. We would just see a slight, almost magical change in its orbit. It would be a change that tells us something pushed it, and that something would have to be technology. This is the telltale sign we are watching for, a deviation from the expected path, a movement that gravity alone cannot explain. The possibilities are thrilling to think about. If it slows down, where would it go? A new orbit could take it anywhere in the solar system. It could be programmed to head towards the asteroid belt to mine for resources. It could be set on a course to study one of the gas giants, like Jupiter or Saturn, and their many moons. Or, and this is the thought that gives us pause, it could adjust its path to get a closer look at us. It could enter an orbit that brings it closer to Earth's neighbourhood. This doesn't mean it would be on a collision course. An advanced intelligence would likely be far more careful than that, but it could place itself in a good position to observe our world from a safe distance. This is what makes the next few days so full of suspense. We're on the edge of a great discovery, or perhaps just another confirmation that space is full of interesting rocks. Either way, the journey of 3i Atlas has captured our imagination. It reminds us that we are part of a much larger cosmos, and that visitors from other star systems can and do pass through our home. For now, all we can do is wait and watch. We have our telescopes pointed, our sensors ready. The big day is almost here. 3i Atlas is making its close call with the sun, and we are here to see what happens next. The silence of its journey is about to be met with the fire of our star. But what if this wild idea is true? What's the smartest move for an alien visitor, and could we even stop them? The internet is a place of amazing information. It connects us all and allows us to share ideas in an instant. But it is also a place where stories can grow and change with every click. When something as exciting as 3i Atlas comes along, It is no surprise that the online world starts buzzing with theories and speculation. And so, we must take a moment to sort fact from fiction, to look at the truth about 3i Atlas online. There is a lot of noise out there. There are many claims being made, and it can be hard to know what to believe. It is our job to look at the real evidence and separate it from the wild guesses. Many people get caught up in the excitement, and they start to see patterns and signs that are not really there. One of the biggest claims you might see online is that 3i Atlas has already changed its course. You might see videos or posts that claim to show proof that it is no longer following its predicted path. They might say it has already fired some kind of engine and is now heading in a new direction. Often these claims are based on a misunderstanding of how we track objects in space. The path of an object like this is never a perfect, simple line. It is always being slightly adjusted by the gravity of the sun, the planets, and even smaller objects. Scientists are constantly updating their predictions as they get more and better data. So when a new prediction is released that is slightly different from an old one, some people might see this as proof that the object has changed course on its own, but in reality it is usually just proof that our measurements are getting better. Another very common myth is that 3i Atlas is heading straight for Earth. This is a very scary thought, and it is the kind of story that spreads very quickly online. People will draw lines on star charts and say, "Look, it's aimed right at us." But this is almost always wrong. Space is incredibly big. The chances of a small object from another star system just happening to be on a direct collision course with our tiny planet are extremely, extremely small. The official tracking data from all the world's space agencies like NASA and the European Space Agency shows very clearly that 3i Atlas is not coming anywhere near Earth. Its closest pass to our planet already happened, and it was still very, very far away. It is important to trust the experts who do this for a living and have the best tools to do it. They have no reason to hide the truth if there were a real danger. Then we have the more specific claims, like the idea of reverse thrusters. This is a term that has been used a lot online. People claim that the object has fired engines to slow itself down. They might point to pictures that they say show a flare or a burst of light from 3i Atlas. But we need to be very careful with images. Our telescopes are looking at a very faint object from millions of miles away. There can be all sorts of things that look like a flash of light. It could be a cosmic ray hitting the camera's sensor. It could be a problem with the image processing. It could be the light reflecting off a piece of space junk. Before we can say that a flash of light is a sign of an alien engine, we need much, much more evidence. So far, there is no good evidence for any kind of reverse thruster or any other engine firing. Every strange dot of light has had a more simple explanation. The truth is, based on all the reliable data we have, 3i Atlas has not shown any unexpected movement. It has been behaving exactly as we would expect a natural object to behave. Its path has been consistent with the laws of gravity. It has not sped up. It has not slowed down. It has not turned. It has followed the course that was laid out for it by the powerful gravity of our sun. While the idea of an alien probe is exciting to think about, we must be honest about what the evidence actually shows. And right now, the evidence shows a comet. A very interesting comet from another star, but a comet nonetheless. The speculation is fun, and it helps us think about the possibilities, but we cannot let it replace the facts. It is easy to get carried away. The story of a secret alien ship is much more exciting than the story of a normal comet, and so, people are more likely to share the exciting story. This is how misinformation spreads. One person makes a wild guess, and then another person shares it as a fact. Soon, thousands of people believe something for which there is no proof at all. This is why it is so important to ask questions. Where did this information come from? Is it from a real space agency or a university? Or is it from a random blog or social media account? Is there any real data to support the claim? By thinking critically, we can protect ourselves from being fooled. We must remember that science is a process. It is about slowly and carefully gathering evidence. It is not about jumping to conclusions. The story of 3i Atlas is still being written. As it gets closer to the sun and then moves away, we will gather more and more data. Perhaps we will see something that does change our minds. Science is always open to new evidence. If we were to see a clear, undeniable sign of technology, the scientific community would be the first to announce it to the world. It would be the biggest discovery in human history. But we are not there yet. For now, we must stick to what we know for sure. So when you see a headline that says alien probe changes course, or comet headed for Earth, Take a deep breath. Check the sources. See what the official space agencies are saying. Most of the time, you will find that the reality is much less dramatic, but still very interesting. The journey of 3i Atlas is a wonderful real-life science story. We do not need to add made-up details to make it exciting. The universe is already full of enough real wonders to keep us busy. Let's enjoy the real story of this interstellar visitor and keep our minds open, but our feet firmly on the ground of evidence and fact. The internet is a tool. We have to choose to use it wisely, especially when it comes to big ideas like this. Let's focus on the real science and the real observations as we continue to watch this object's historic journey through our solar system. The truth is out there, but we must be patient and careful in our search for it. The online world is full of voices and everyone has an opinion. This can be a good thing as it allows for open discussion. But it also means that voices with no expertise can sound just as loud as those who have spent their lives studying the stars. You might see complex charts and graphs that look very scientific, but were actually made by someone with no training in orbital mechanics. They might use scientific-sounding words to make their claims seem more real. This is a common trick used to spread misinformation. They know that if it looks official, people are more likely to believe it. But a real scientific paper or report will always show its data and its methods. It will be checked by other scientists to make sure it is correct. A random post online does not have to do any of that. We must also be aware of our own biases. A bias is when you want something to be true so much that you start to see evidence for it everywhere, even if it is not there. This is called confirmation bias. Many of us would love for there to be proof of alien life. It would be an amazing, world-changing discovery. Because we want it to be true, we might be more willing to believe a blurry photo or a strange claim about 3i Atlas. We have to be honest with ourselves and make sure we are looking at the evidence fairly, not just looking for proof of what we already want to believe. This is what scientists are trained to do. They are trained to question their own results and to look for other possible explanations before they accept a new, extraordinary idea. The story of Oumuamua is a good example. Oumuamua was the first interstellar object we ever detected. It was very strange. It was long and thin, and it sped up as it left our solar system in a way that was hard to explain. A famous scientist from Harvard, Avi Loeb, suggested that it could have been an alien artifact, maybe a solar sail. This was a very exciting idea, but most other scientists disagreed. They said that while it was strange, there were other, more natural explanations that could also fit the data. For example, it could have been a nitrogen iceberg, which would release gas in a way that was hard to see but could still push it. The debate is still going on. This is how science works. Big ideas are put forward, and then they are tested and debated by the whole community. It is a slow, careful process. With 3i Atlas, we are still in the very early stages of this process. We are still just gathering the basic data. We know its path, we know its speed, and we have some idea of its size. But there is still so much we do not know. As we continue to watch it, we will learn more. But we must be patient. The answers will not come overnight. They will come from careful observation and analysis over many months, and maybe even years. So, let's treat the online chatter as what it is. Just chatter. It is the background noise. Let's focus on the signal, which is the real, verified data coming from our telescopes and our space agencies. That is where the true story of 3i Atlas will be found. The truth is often quieter and more complex than the fictions we find online, but it is always more rewarding in the end. In this age of instant news, we're used to getting answers right away. But space does not work on our schedule. It moves at its own grand, slow pace. The journey of 3i Atlas from another star to our sun took thousands, maybe millions of years. We have only known about it for a short time. To rush to a conclusion now would be a mistake. We owe it to ourselves and to the potential significance of this event to be thorough. Let's enjoy the speculation for what it is, a fun way to explore the possibilities, but let's not mistake it for fact. Let the scientists do their work. Let the data come in. The real story of 3i Atlas is just beginning, and we should all be excited to follow it, but we must do so with a clear and critical mind. So let's move away from the noise of the internet and turn our attention to what we can actually see. What are our eyes in the sky, our powerful telescopes, telling us about this visitor? It is time to look at the real data and the actual images we have of 3i Atlas. These are the hard facts that form the foundation of our understanding. While they may not be as dramatic as some of the online claims, they are what is real, and the reality of this object's journey is fascinating enough on its own. We have been watching it carefully, and what our telescopes see tells a very clear story. One of our most important tools for watching objects near the Sun is the GOES-19 satellite. This satellite is designed to watch the Sun and the space around it. It has a special kind of camera called a coronagraph. A coronagraph is a clever device that blocks out the blinding light of the Sun itself, so that we can see the much fainter things in the space right next to it. It is like using your hand to block the Sun from your eyes so you can see a bird flying nearby. Without the coronagraph, seeing a faint comet like 3I Atlas so close to the Sun would be impossible. The Sun's light would just wash everything out. The coronagraph on GOES-19, specifically the one called the CCR1 coronagraph, has been our primary eye on 3I Atlas during this critical time. Between October 18th and October 24th, this camera was able to capture a series of faint images of the object. They are not sharp, clear pictures like you would take with your phone. They are just a few faint pixels moving across a screen. But to a scientist, those few pixels are a treasure trove of information. They show us where the object is, which direction it is moving, and how fast it is going. These are the key pieces of the puzzle. And what do these images show? They show something very important. They show that 3I Atlas is still following its expected path. The positions we saw in the GOES-19 images match up almost perfectly with the path that was predicted by scientists weeks and months ago. There have been no major changes. There have been no surprises. It is moving just as gravity says it should. This is very strong evidence against the idea that it has fired any kind of engine or changed its course. If it had done so, it would not be where we see it. It would be in a slightly different place. But it is not. It is right on schedule, right on track. This is a crucial point. The predictions we make about orbits are based on the laws of physics that we have known for hundreds of years. They are incredibly accurate. If an object deviates from that predicted path, it means some other force must be acting on it. This could be a natural force, like gas shooting out of a comet, or it could be an artificial force, like an engine. With 3I Atlas, we are not seeing any deviation that would require a new force to explain it. The predictions made based on gravity alone are working perfectly. This tells us that, at least so far, gravity is the only major force steering this ship. What about its speed? The speed of an object is just as important as its position. As 3I Atlas gets closer to the Sun, we expect it to speed up. This is a basic rule of gravity. The closer you are to a massive object, the faster you move. Think again about the swing set. You are moving fastest at the bottom of the swing. The data we have confirms this perfectly. The speed of 3I Atlas has been increasing exactly as predicted. It is set to reach its maximum speed, its peak velocity, during its closest approach to the Sun. That peak speed is going to be incredibly fast. It is predicted to hit about 68 kilometers per second. Let's try to understand that number. That is, not kilometers per hour, but per second. Every single second, it travels 68 kilometers. That is fast enough to go from one side of a major city to the other in a single tick of a clock. It is more than twice as fast as the Earth moves in its orbit around the Sun. It is a truly mind-boggling speed, and it is all powered by the simple, elegant force of our Sun's gravity. The fact that its speed is matching our predictions so well is another strong piece of evidence that we are looking at a natural object behaving in a natural way. So, when we put all of this real data together, a clear picture emerges. We see an object that is following the rules. It is moving along a predictable path at a predictable speed. The images from our best telescopes confirm this. There is no mystery in its movements. There is no sign of any technology at work. This does not mean the object is not interesting. It is still a visitor from another star, and that alone makes it incredibly rare and important to study. It can teach us about what other star systems are like. What are their comets made of? What can that tell us about how their planets were formed? These are important scientific questions, but it is also important to be clear about what we are not seeing. We are not seeing a spaceship. We are not seeing an alien probe making a course correction. We are seeing an object that is, for all intents and purposes, behaving like a comet. It is a wild and untamed visitor from the interstellar darkness, and it is playing by the rules of our solar system. The beauty of science is that it allows us to see these things clearly. to cut through the speculation and see what is really happening millions of miles away. Our telescopes are our remote eyes, and they're telling us a consistent and so far a very natural story. The journey is not over, of course. We will continue to watch 3i Atlas as it swings around the Sun and heads back out. The period just after perihelion will also be very important. We will get an even better view of it once it is no longer hidden in the Sun's glare. We will be able to point more telescopes at it and study it in even greater detail. Perhaps we will see something new then. Science must always be open to that possibility. But for now, the data we have is clear. The faint images from GOES 19, the precise tracking of its orbit, and the steady increase in its speed all point to one conclusion. This interstellar traveller is, so far, acting just like any other comet would in its position. The laws of gravity are in full control, and as we watch, we are witnessing a beautiful, predictable dance between a tiny visitor and our giant star. Let's be honest with ourselves. The chance of 3i Atlas being an alien spaceship is very, very low. If you had to put a number on it, you might say it is a 0.01% chance, or even smaller. The universe is full of natural objects, and we have seen many comets and asteroids before. The simplest explanation, and the one that is most likely to be true, is that 3i Atlas is just another one of these natural objects, although a special one because it comes from another star. Science always prefers the simplest explanation that fits all the facts, and right now the natural comet explanation fits all the facts perfectly. However, it is also part of science and part of being human to ask, what if? What if this is that 1 in a billion case? What if we are wrong and this object is something more? Thinking about this is not unscientific. It is an interesting thought experiment. It helps us prepare for a possibility, no matter how small it is. It forces us to think about what we would look for and what it would mean. So let's allow ourselves for a moment to explore this what-if scenario. What if 3i Atlas is not just a rock, but something more? What if it is an alien probe? This is where we can explore the alien probe idea, and why we even consider it. If we assume, just for this thought experiment, that 3i Atlas is an advanced alien craft, then everything we have been talking about changes meaning. The perihelion, the close pass by the Sun, is no longer just a natural event. It becomes the most important moment of the mission. It would be the perfect time for the probe to make a planned move. An intelligent species that could send a probe across the vast emptiness between stars would be masters of physics. They would understand the Oberth maneuver better than we do. They would know that this is the one moment when they can change their orbit with the least amount of energy. They would have planned their entire journey around this event. So if it were an alien craft, what would be the logical thing for it to do at perihelion? It would not just fly by randomly. Every action would have a purpose. The first and most obvious action would be to execute that braking maneuver we talked about. It would fire an engine to slow down and allow itself to be captured by our Sun's gravity. This would be step one. Why travel all this way just to leave again? Capturing itself in our solar system would be the primary goal. It would be the move that says, we are here to stay. This action alone would be a huge signal to us, a sign that this is no natural object. After being captured, what would be the next logical step? It would need to choose a destination. It would not just float around in a random new orbit. It would use the energy from the Oberth maneuver not just to slow down, but to aim itself at a specific target. An advanced alien visitor would have studied our solar system from far away. They would already know a lot about our planets and moons. They would have a plan. They would not be here just to look around. They would have a mission. That mission could be to study, to explore, to gather resources, or perhaps even to colonize. So we have to think like them. If you were an advanced alien intelligence arriving in a new solar system, what would your priorities be? Your first priority would be safety and resources. You would want to go to a place where you could be secure and where you could get the materials you need to build, refuel, and expand. You would want a base of operations, a place to set up camp from which you could explore the rest of the system. This is logical. This is strategic thinking. It is what any intelligent planner would do, whether they are human or from another star. What would this mean for the movements we would see? We would see a very precise change in its path. It would not be a clumsy or messy change. It would be elegant and efficient. It would be a single, perfectly timed engine burn at perihelion that would send it on a direct course to its chosen destination. And we, with our telescopes, could track this new path, We could see where it was going. We could calculate its destination. It would be like watching a cosmic game of chess, where the other player has just made a very deliberate and intelligent move. This is why, even though the probability is tiny, the idea is so powerful. The consequences would be enormous. The simple act of 3i Atlas changing its path in a way that gravity cannot explain would change human history forever. It would be the first definitive proof that we are not alone in the universe. It would be a message. It would be an announcement. And it would start a whole new chapter for humanity, one filled with both incredible excitement and deep uncertainty. This thought experiment is also useful because it gives us a checklist. It tells us what to look for. We are not just looking for any random change. We are looking for a specific kind of change. A change that is efficient. A change that is deliberate. A change that leads to a logical destination within our solar system. If we were to see 3i Atlas make a small, precise maneuver that sends it on a perfect path to, say, the moons of Jupiter, that would be much more convincing than if it just randomly tumbled or broke apart. It would show intelligence and purpose, so as we watch the sky, we hold these two ideas in our minds at the same time. The first idea is the likely one, that 3i Atlas is a natural comet on a natural path. The second idea is the unlikely but incredibly important one, that it is an alien probe making a key move. By considering both, we are being good scientists. We are being open-minded but also grounded in the evidence. We are letting the object itself tell us its story, and we are ready to listen, no matter what that story turns out to be. The alien probe idea is a whisper in a storm of data, but it is a whisper that we must pay attention to, because sometimes the most unlikely ideas are the ones that change the world. Let's continue this thought experiment. If this is an intelligent probe, it is a scout. It is the first one to arrive. A scout's job is to be careful, to gather information, and to find a safe place to set up. It would try to remain unnoticed for as long as possible. A loud, obvious arrival might not be its goal, so even its big move at Perihelion might be designed to be as subtle as possible. It might use a very advanced, efficient engine that does not produce a big, bright flame. It might be a stealth maneuver. This would make it even harder for us to detect. We would have to rely on very precise measurements of its path. This is another reason why the idea, while a long shot, is so hard to dismiss completely. We are trying to detect something that might be actively trying not to be detected. We are like sentries in the dark, listening for a sound that might be deliberately muffled. This adds to the mystery and the challenge. We have to be incredibly careful with our data and our analysis. We have to be sure that any change we see is real, and not just an error in our measurements. The burden of proof for an extraordinary claim like this is, and should be, very high. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't keep looking. The search itself is a worthy endeavour. Let's continue down this path of logical speculation. If an alien intelligence were looking to colonize a new solar system, what would be their first target? Many people would immediately think of Earth. Our planet is often called a Goldilocks planet. It is not too hot and not too cold. It is just right for liquid water and for life as we know it. It is full of resources. It has a breathable atmosphere. On the surface, it seems like the perfect place to land and set up a new home. But if you think about it from the perspective of an advanced, strategic colonizer, you might realize that Earth is actually a bad place for first contact, at least for them. The biggest problem with Earth is us. There are 8 billion human beings living here. We are a complex, unpredictable, and heavily armed species. We have covered the planet with our cities, our farms, and our industries. An alien force trying to land here would not be met with a welcome party. It would almost certainly be met with a huge, and likely hostile reaction. Think about how our own bodies work. When a foreign virus or bacteria enters our body, our immune system immediately attacks it. It does not wait to ask questions. It sees an invader, and it tries to destroy it. Humanity would likely act as a planetary immune system. The arrival of an unknown, powerful force would be seen as the ultimate threat. An advanced alien group, one smart enough to travel between stars, would likely be smart enough to predict this. They would understand conflict. They would understand risk. Why would they choose to start their new life in a new home with a massive violent war? It makes no sense from a strategic point of view. A war would be costly. It would use up precious resources. It could damage the very planet they want to colonize. And even if they were far more advanced than us and could win easily, it would still be a messy and inefficient way to start. A smart colonizing group would want to avoid conflict if at all possible. They would look for the path of least resistance, so they would probably choose to go somewhere else first. They would look for a place that is uninhabited, a place where they could land, set up a base, and gather resources without anyone shooting at them. They would want to establish a strong foothold in the solar system from a safe and quiet location. From there, they could build up their strength, learn more about us from a distance, and decide on their next move. This is a much more logical and intelligent strategy. It is a strategy of patience and preparation, not a strategy of immediate risky confrontation. While Earth has a lot of resources that are easy to get to, like water and oxygen, a truly advanced civilization would likely not be limited to just one planet. They would be able to see and use the resources of the entire solar system. They would know that water, metals, and energy are available in many other places, not just on Earth. And in many of those other places there are no people to fight. So, the choice becomes simple. Do you go to the place with the easily accessible resources that is guarded by a potentially hostile native species? Or do you go to a place with slightly harder to access resources, but with zero chance of a fight? The smart money would be on the second option. This is why, in our thought experiment, if 3i Atlas were an alien probe, Earth would likely be low on its list of first destinations. It might be its ultimate goal, the prize it has its eye on for the future. But it would not be its first stop. It would be reckless to go there right away. It would be like a chess player moving their king into the centre of the board on the very first move. It is a bad play. A good player sets up their other pieces first. They build a strong position, control the board, and only then do they go for the final objective. So if not Earth, then where? This is the next logical question. If we rule out our home planet as the primary target, we have to look at the other options in our solar system. The probe would want a place with a good combination of resources, safety, and strategic value. It would be looking for the best piece of real estate to start building its new home, and our solar system has many interesting options to choose from. The inner planets, like Venus and Mercury, are too hot. The outer planets themselves, the gas giants, have no solid surface to land on. So the most logical places to look would be the moons of the outer planets, or perhaps the asteroid belt. This line of reasoning helps us narrow down the possibilities. It makes our thought experiment more focused. If we see 3i Atlas change its course, we can now judge its new path based on this logic. Is it heading towards a smart strategic location, or is it heading towards a place that makes no sense? If it were to aim itself directly at Earth, some might see that as proof of a hostile invasion. But it could also be seen as proof that it is not an intelligent actor, because it would be a very poor strategic move. An intelligent probe would be more subtle. It would be smarter. It would play the long game, and that long game would likely start far away from the complexities and dangers of planet Earth. So, as we imagine what this alien probe might do, let's try to give it some credit for being smart. Let's assume it is a good planner. This means we should be looking for it to make a move towards a place that gives it a strategic advantage. A place that is rich in resources but poor in people. A place where it can build and grow quietly and safely, before making its presence known to the noisy inhabitants of the third planet from the Sun. This changes how we watch and what we look for. We are not just looking for a signal, we are looking for a sign of intelligence. And intelligence often means choosing the unexpected but ultimately wiser path. Earth, for all its life and beauty, might simply be too much trouble to be worth the risk, at least for now. As 3i Atlas continued its journey into our solar system, it did pass by another world that has long captured our imagination, Mars, the red planet. It is another planet in the Goldilocks zone, though on the very cold and dry edge of it. We often think of Mars as the most likely place for future human colonization. So, it is natural to ask, what about Mars? If an alien probe wanted to avoid Earth, could Mars be its target? 3i Atlas recently had a flyby of Mars. It passed relatively close to the planet. So, what did this Mars flyby mean? Especially if we are thinking in the context of an alien mission. First, let's look at what we actually saw. During its pass by Mars, we were watching. We have our own probes and rovers on and around Mars. We have a good view of that part of space. And during this flyby, we saw nothing unusual. There were no signs of 3i Atlas slowing down. There were no signs of it trying to enter orbit around Mars. There were no signs of it sending out smaller probes to land on the surface or to get a closer look. It simply flew by. It followed its gravitational path, and Mars was just another landmark on its journey towards the Sun. From an observational point of view, the Mars flyby was a non-event. Nothing happened. But let's put our strategic alien planner hat back on. Could this flyby have been part of the plan? It is possible. Even if Mars was not the final destination, a close flyby would be a great opportunity to gather data. An advanced probe would be covered in sensors. As it passed Mars, it could have been scanning the planet. It could have been studying its atmosphere, its geology, its potential for resources. It would be like a tourist driving through a new town. They might not plan to stop and live there, but they will still look out the window and take pictures. This flyby could have been a valuable information-gathering opportunity. Perhaps Mars was a secondary candidate for a base. The probe might have been programmed to assess both Earth and Mars on its way in. It would collect data on both, and then, based on that data, make its final decision on where to go after its big maneuver at the Sun. In this scenario, the flyby was a success. It got the information it needed and then it continued on its way, with the data safely stored. It now knows what Mars is like, and it can use that information in its future plans. This is a logical and efficient way to conduct a reconnaissance mission. You don't have to stop everywhere. You can learn a lot just by passing by. Another possibility is that Mars was simply never the target. While we humans are very interested in Mars, an advanced alien civilization might see it very differently. They might have scanned it from afar and already decided it was not a good place for them. Why? Mars has a very thin atmosphere. It has very little protection from solar radiation. It is cold and dusty. And while there is some water ice, it may not have the vast quantities of resources that they are looking for. They might have looked at Mars and thought, it's okay, but there are better options. To a civilization that can travel between stars, a place like Mars might seem like a barren desert, with little to offer compared to other locations in our solar system. So, the fact that 3i Atlas did not stop at Mars does not necessarily mean it is not a probe. It could simply mean that Mars was not its objective. It could be that it was just a point on its path, and its true target lies further on. This makes sense if you think about the bigger picture. If you are going to set up a long-term, expanding presence in a new solar system, you want to go to the place with the most resources and the best strategic location. Mars is not that place. It is a small rocky planet with limited resources. There are other places in our solar system that are far, far richer. The flyby was also a good test for us. It showed that our ability to track this object is very good. We watched it pass Mars and its path was, once again, perfectly predictable. This adds more weight to the natural object theory. If it was going to make a move, why not make a small one near Mars to adjust its course for the Sun? It did not. It stayed on its simple gravitational path. Every piece of evidence we collect seems to point in the same direction. The object is behaving naturally. So, to sum up the Mars flyby, we can say this. Nothing happened that would suggest it is an alien probe. It passed the planet without any interaction. But if we are committed to our thought experiment, we can say that this does not rule out the probe idea. It could have been gathering data, or it could simply have had its sights set on a better target from the very beginning. The Mars flyby was another chapter in the story of 3i Atlas, but it was a quiet one. It did not provide any new clues to suggest this object is anything, other than a comet. The real test, the real moment of truth was always going to be the Perihelion, the close pass by the Sun. That is the moment of maximum opportunity. What happened at Mars was just a prelude. It was part of the journey, not the destination. So, while it is interesting to consider, we should not get too focused on it. Our attention must remain on the bigger picture, on the object's encounter with the central star of our system. That is where the big secrets, if there are any, will be revealed. The journey past Mars was silent and uneventful. The object continued on its path, a tiny, lonely traveller heading for its fiery appointment with our Sun. Its lack of interest in Mars only makes the question of its true destination, if it has one, even more intriguing. We have used the term Oberth maneuver many times. It is the key to this whole idea of 3i Atlas changing its path. But what is it really? How does it work? It sounds like something out of a science fiction movie, but it is a very real concept in physics. It is all about getting the most bang for your buck when you're using rocket fuel. Let's break it down and understand the secrets of this slingshot and how an Oberth maneuver works in a simple way. It is a trick that lets a spacecraft get a huge boost by using a planet's or a star's gravity. Imagine you are on a skateboard and you are rolling down a very steep hill. As you go down the hill, you pick up a lot of speed. You are converting the potential energy you had at the top of the hill into kinetic energy, the energy of motion. Now, imagine that as you are at the very bottom of the hill at your fastest point, you have a small rocket engine on your back. If you fire that rocket engine for just 1 second at the bottom of the hill, it will give you a much bigger boost in your final speed than if you fired it at the top of the hill, where you were moving slowly. Why? Because the energy you get from the rocket adds to the high energy you already have. Your fuel is working more efficiently because you are already moving so fast. The Oberth maneuver is exactly like that, but in space. The steep hill is the sun's gravity well. A gravity well is the invisible valley in space-time created by a massive object like the sun. When a spacecraft like 3i Atlas falls into this gravity well, it picks up a huge amount of speed, just like the skateboarder going down the hill. Its perihelion, its closest point to the sun, is the very bottom of that hill. That is the point where it is moving the fastest. Now, if 3i Atlas is a spacecraft and it fires its engine at this fastest point, the fuel it burns has a much greater effect on its total energy. The energy from the rocket burn gets multiplied by the high speed the spacecraft already has. This is the secret. You're not just adding speed, you're adding energy, and when you are already moving fast, a small change in speed equals a huge change in energy. This means that a spacecraft can make big changes to its path with very little fuel. It is the ultimate efficiency hack for space travel. It is a way to use a star's own gravity against it, to steal some of its energy for your own use. Let's think about it another way. It is like getting a gravitational slingshot. You might have heard this term used for NASA missions like Voyager. The Voyager probes use the gravity of Jupiter and Saturn to fling themselves out into the outer solar system. The Oberth maneuver is like a powered version of that slingshot. The normal slingshot just changes your direction and gives you a speed boost based on the planet's motion. The Oberth maneuver adds your own engine power at the perfect moment of that slingshot to get an even more massive boost. It is a slingshot on steroids. This is why the perihelion of 3i Atlas is the one moment we're all watching. It is the one and only time during its visit to our solar system that it can perform this amazing trick. If it wants to change its path efficiently, this is the time to do it. Any change it tries to make when it is far away from the sun, out in the slow part of its orbit, would require a huge amount of fuel. It would be like trying to get that big speed boost on your skateboard by firing your rocket at the top of the hill where you're barely moving. It would be a huge waste of energy. An advanced alien civilization would never be so wasteful. They would use physics to their advantage. They would wait for this perfect moment. The maneuver can be used in 2 ways. It can be used to speed up, or it can be used to slow down. If the spacecraft fires its engine in the same direction it is already travelling, it will gain a massive amount of speed and be flung out of the solar system on a much faster path. This is called a powered flyby. But if it fires its engine in the opposite direction, against its direction of travel, it acts as a brake. Because of the Oberth effect, this braking is also super efficient. A small amount of reverse thrust can scrub off a huge amount of speed, and if it scrubs off enough speed, it can cancel out its escape velocity. Escape velocity is the speed an object needs to break free from a planet's or star's gravity. If your speed drops below the escape velocity, you are captured. You're stuck in orbit. This is the key to our whole alien probe thought experiment. If 3i Atlas is a probe and it wants to stay in our solar system, it must perform an Oberth maneuver at perihelion to slow down. It is the only logical, fuel-efficient way to do it. A small engine burn, lasting maybe only a few minutes or hours, would be enough to change its fate from a passing visitor to a permanent resident. And it is this change, this signature of an intelligent, efficient maneuver, that we would be looking for in the data. We would see its speed after perihelion be slightly less than we expected. We would see its path change from a hyperbola, an open-ended escape path, to an ellipse, a closed orbit. This would be the smoking gun. This would be the proof. So the Oberth maneuver is not magic. It is just clever physics. It is about using the power of gravity to make your own power more effective. It is the smartest way to travel around a solar system. Any species that has mastered interstellar travel would be an absolute expert at it. For them, it would be as basic as a driver knowing when to press the gas pedal in a car. and as 3i Atlas reaches its perihelion, we are watching to see if a driver is at the wheel, or if it is just an empty car, rolling down the hill on its own, guided only by the unthinking hand of gravity. The simple physics of this maneuver holds the key to the entire mystery. So let's assume the most exciting possibility is true. Let's say that 3i Atlas performs a perfect Oberth maneuver. It slows down, gets captured by our sun's gravity, and sets a course for a new destination. Where would it go? If it were an alien technology, what would be the grand target for this galactic guest? We have already discussed why Earth and Mars are likely not the best first stops. They are too risky or not resource-rich enough. So where is the best place to set up a new home in our solar system? The evidence in the object's own flight path points to one giant, magnificent destination: Jupiter. First, let's look at the path 3i Atlas is already on. Even without any changes, its natural gravitational path is set to take it very close to Jupiter. Its trajectory has it swinging by the giant planet in March of 2026. This is a very interesting coincidence. Of all the places it could go, its path already lines it up with the biggest and most powerful planet in our solar system. If you were planning an interstellar mission, you might do this on purpose. You would aim your probe so that its natural path takes it near your intended target. This way, the final course correction you have to make is very, very small. It is another example of being efficient. A very slight Oberth maneuver near the Sun would be all that is needed to turn this Jupiter flyby into a Jupiter orbit insertion. A tiny braking maneuver, a small nudge, would be enough to change its path just enough so that when it reaches Jupiter in 2026, it can be captured by Jupiter's immense gravity. It would be a two-step capture process. First, it gets captured by the Sun into a large orbit. Then, that orbit takes it to Jupiter, where it gets captured again into a smaller orbit around the planet. This is an incredibly elegant and energy-efficient way to arrive at your destination. It would be a clear sign of intelligent planning. But why Jupiter? What makes it such a great target? The answer is simple. Jupiter is not just a planet. It is a solar system in miniature. It is a kingdom all its own. Jupiter has at least 95 moons that we know of. Among them are 4 huge moons, known as the Galilean moons: Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto. These are not just small, dead rocks. These are planet-sized worlds in their own right. Ganymede is bigger than the planet Mercury. They are complex and fascinating places, and they are full of the one resource that is most important for space exploration and colonization: water. By going to Jupiter, an alien force would not be settling on just one world. They would be gaining access to a whole system of worlds. It would be like a colonizing force from history arriving in a new land and finding not just one island, but a whole chain of large, rich islands to settle on. This makes Jupiter an excellent place to establish a foothold in our solar system. You have multiple options, multiple bases, and a huge amount of territory to work with. You are not putting all your eggs in one basket. If one moon turns out to be not as good as you thought, you can just move to the next one over. Jupiter's system offers both safety and resources. It is far from Earth, so the aliens could set up their base without us being able to do much about it, at least for a very long time. Our ability to travel to Jupiter is still very limited. It would give them plenty of time to build and prepare, unbothered by the natives on that small rocky planet in the inner solar system. And the resources there are almost unlimited. The water ice on the moons can be used for drinking, for creating breathable air, and most importantly for making rocket fuel. By splitting water into hydrogen and oxygen, you get the most powerful chemical rocket fuel there is. The Jupiter system is like a giant free gas station floating in space. This is why Jupiter is the most logical destination for a smart colonizing force. It is strategically sound, it is resource-rich, and its location is already built into the current flight path of 3i Atlas. The pieces just fit together too well. If we were to see 3i Atlas make that small but crucial maneuver, and if its new path was aimed squarely at Jupiter, it would be very hard to argue that it was a coincidence. It would look like a perfectly executed plan. It would be the opening move in a grand strategy to take control of the most valuable real estate in the solar system. So, as we watch the skies, Jupiter looms large in our minds. It is the silent, giant player in this cosmic game. Is 3i Atlas just a random comet that happens to be flying by it? Or is it a messenger, a scout heading for its new king? The answer lies in the subtle changes in its path as it emerges from the glare of the sun. If it continues on its way out of the solar system, then the story ends. But if it adjusts its course, and that new course points to the king of the planets, then a new and much more complex story is just beginning. Jupiter, the grand target, awaits its potential galactic guest. The next move is up to 3i Atlas. Let's dive deeper into the Jupiter system. If Jupiter is the target neighbourhood, which moon would be the best real estate in our solar system? If you were an alien, colonizer, where would you build your main base? The answer, for many strategic reasons, points to one moon in particular, Ganymede. Ganymede is not just any moon, it is a true giant. It is the largest moon in our entire solar system. To give you some perspective, Ganymede is bigger than the planet Mercury and the dwarf planet Pluto. It is a world in its own right, with a complex and fascinating structure. It would be the perfect place to start a new civilization. One of the most special things about Ganymede is that it is the only moon in our solar system that has its own magnetic field. This is a very big deal. A magnetic field acts like a shield. It protects the surface of a world from some of the dangerous radiation that is constantly streaming from the Sun and from Jupiter itself. Jupiter has a huge and incredibly powerful magnetic field of its own, which traps radiation and creates a very dangerous environment. Ganymede's personal magnetic field carves out a small bubble of safety within Jupiter's larger, more dangerous field. This could offer some crucial protection for any colonists, whether they are on the surface or in orbit. It is a natural defense system that no other moon has, but the real treasure of Ganymede lies beneath its surface. Under a thick crust of ice, scientists are almost certain that there is a huge global ocean of liquid salt water. This is not just a small lake. It is an ocean that may contain more water than all of Earth's oceans combined. This is an incredible resource. Water is the key to life and to technology in space. You can drink it. You can use it to grow food. You can split it into oxygen to breathe. And, as we mentioned before, you can split it into hydrogen and oxygen to make the best rocket fuel we know of. Ganymede is not just a moon. It is a giant floating tank of water and fuel. For a colonizing force, this is like finding a massive untouched oil field and a freshwater spring all in one place. Another huge advantage of Ganymede is its low gravity. The gravity on Ganymede is much weaker than it is on Earth. This makes launching things into space very, very easy. On Earth, we need huge, powerful rockets and a massive amount of fuel just to escape our planet's strong gravity. It is a difficult and expensive process. On Ganymede, you would need much smaller rockets and much less fuel to lift the same amount of weight into orbit. This would make building a space-based civilization much easier. You could easily launch mining ships to the nearby asteroids, send probes to the other moons, or build large structures in orbit. Ganymede would be the perfect natural spaceport, a central hub from which to expand across the entire solar system. There is also the potential for natural energy sources on Ganymede. The same forces that keep the ocean under the ice liquid could also create things like hydrothermal vents on the ocean floor. Hydrothermal vents are like underwater hot springs. On Earth, these vents are teeming with life that does not depend on sunlight for energy. They get their energy from the chemicals and heat coming from inside the planet. An advanced alien civilization could potentially tap into this geothermal energy. It would be a constant, reliable power source hidden safely beneath the ice. It would be another incredible resource that would make Ganymede an ideal place to live and work. So, when you add it all up, Ganymede looks like the perfect prize. It is big. It has its own protective magnetic field. It has a massive ocean of water, which means fuel and life support. It has low gravity, making it an ideal base for space travel, and it might even have its own internal energy source. It is hard to imagine a better place to start a new colony in our solar system, especially if your goal is to be self-sufficient and to expand. It is the most valuable piece of real estate beyond the asteroid belt. If 3i Atlas were an alien probe, and its mission was to find the best place to set up a long-term presence, its own sensors would surely identify Ganymede as the top candidate. Its logical programming would lead it to the same conclusion. It would see Ganymede as the key to the whole Jupiter system, and perhaps the key to the entire solar system. By controlling Ganymede, you control the fuel supply. You control the best natural spaceport. You control the most strategic and defensible location in the outer solar system. This is why, If we see 3i Atlas change course towards Jupiter, our next step would be to watch its trajectory very, very closely. We would want to see if it is aiming for a general orbit around Jupiter, or if it is aiming for a much more specific orbit, one that would lead it to a rendezvous with Ganymede. If we saw the latter, it would be an even stronger sign of intelligent intent. It would show that the probe not only has a destination, but a very specific and well-chosen one. It would be another move in the chess game, and it would be a move that says, I am going for the Queen. Ganymede is the queen of Jupiter's moons, the crown jewel of the outer solar system. While Ganymede might be the top prize, the Jupiter system offers even more. Right next door to Ganymede are two other huge water worlds of opportunity, Europa and Callisto. These moons, along with Ganymede, would allow for a rapid and powerful expansion. An alien colonizing force would not have to limit themselves to just one base. They could quickly become a multi-world civilization, all within the relatively close and convenient system of Jupiter. Let's look at what these other moons have to offer. First, let's talk about Europa. Europa is a little smaller than our own moon, but it is one of the most exciting places in the solar system for scientists who are looking for life. Like Ganymede, Europa is covered in a crust of ice, and underneath that ice, we are almost certain there is a massive global ocean of liquid salt water. This ocean on Europa might be even more interesting than Ganymede's, because it is likely in direct contact with the moon's rocky mantle. This interaction could create a rich chemical environment, similar to the hydrothermal vents on Earth's ocean floors. This makes Europa one of the most likely places in our solar system besides Earth to host its own native life. For an alien colonizing force, Europa would be another incredible source of water and, therefore, rocket fuel. Being so close to Ganymede, it would be easy to travel between the two. They could set up a primary base on Ganymede and then establish a secondary science outpost, or a refueling station on Europa. They could study Europa's ocean to see if there is any local life. This would be of huge scientific interest to any advanced civilization. Imagine arriving in a new solar system and finding two life-bearing worlds, Earth and potentially Europa. It would be an extraordinary discovery. Next, there is Callisto. Callisto is the outermost of the four large Galilean moons. It is a bit smaller than Ganymede, but it is still a huge world, about the same size as the planet Mercury. Like its siblings, Callisto is also believed to have a large liquid water ocean deep beneath its surface. But Callisto has a special advantage. It is a little farther away from Jupiter. This means it is outside the most intense part of Jupiter's radiation belts. The surface of Callisto receives much less radiation than Europa or Ganymede. This would make it a safer place to build surface structures or to conduct mining operations. Callisto's surface is also the oldest and most heavily cratered in the entire solar system. This means it has been very stable for billions of years. It has not had a lot of geological activity, like volcanoes or tectonics, to change its surface. This could make it a very stable and predictable place to build a large long-term base. It would be the quiet, stable suburb to Ganymede's busy central city. It offers a different kind of advantage, one of safety and stability over the more dynamic and resource-rich inner moons. So if you are an alien planner, you now have a perfect trio of worlds. You have Ganymede as your central hub, with its magnetic field, low gravity, and huge ocean. You have Europa as your nearby science lab and secondary refueling station, with its potentially life-bearing ocean. And you have Callisto as your safe, stable outpost, away from the worst of the radiation. This is a powerful and versatile setup. It would allow for rapid expansion and give the colonizers multiple bases to work from. They would be very hard to dislodge. They would have redundancy. If something went wrong on one moon, they would have two others to fall back on. It is true that the radiation around Jupiter is a big challenge. Europa in particular gets hit with a very high dose of radiation that would be deadly to humans on the surface. But we're talking about an advanced alien civilization. It is very likely that they would have technology to deal with this. Their ships and suits would have advanced radiation shielding, and they would likely not spend much time on the surface anyway. The most logical place to build their main habitats would be under the ice, within the liquid water oceans themselves. The thick ice sheet would provide a perfect natural shield against all the radiation from above. Down in the dark, quiet oceans of Ganymede or Europa, they would be completely safe. This is the true potential of the Jupiter system. It is not just about one moon. It is about the synergy of having multiple, massive, resource-rich worlds, all orbiting the same planet, all within easy reach of each other. It is a colonizer's dream. No other place in our solar system offers this combination of advantages. By choosing Jupiter, an alien force would be choosing the most powerful and promising location to begin their new empire. It is a move that would be hard to counter. It would be a checkmate in the opening moves of the game. The picture we are painting is one of incredible abundance. The Jupiter system is a treasure chest, and an alien colonizing force would have the keys to unlock it. Let's detail the incredible amount of resources that are available around Jupiter. These resources would not just support a small outpost. They could fuel a new empire for thousands of years. It is a place where a small single probe could grow into a vast solar system spanning civilization. This is the true strategic value of Jupiter. The most important resource, as we have discussed, is water. The water locked away in the underground oceans of Ganymede, Europa and Callisto is almost hard to comprehend. It is estimated that these 3 moons together have dozens of times more water than all of Earth's oceans combined. This is the fundamental building block of any expansion into space. Water can be purified for drinking. It can be used to grow food in hydroponic farms. But its most critical use is for making fuel. By running an electric current through water, you can easily split it into hydrogen and oxygen. Hydrogen and oxygen, when combined, make the most efficient and powerful chemical rocket fuel we know. This means that the Jupiter system is sitting on a virtually unlimited supply of rocket fuel. An alien civilization could set up a fuel factory on Ganymede and produce enough fuel to power thousands of ships. This would give them complete mobility throughout the entire solar system. They could send mining missions to the asteroid belt, send exploratory ships to Saturn and Uranus, or even send ships to the inner solar system to observe Earth and Mars. They would never have to worry about running out of gas. This is a huge strategic advantage. They would hold the keys to space travel within our solar system, but the resources are not limited to just water. Jupiter itself is a massive ball of the 2 most common elements in the universe, hydrogen and helium. While landing on Jupiter is impossible, an advanced civilization could likely scoop these gases from the top of its atmosphere. Hydrogen is a key component of rocket fuel, of course, but it is also essential for many advanced technologies, including fusion power. Helium, especially an isotope called helium-3, is also considered a potential fuel for clean and powerful fusion reactors. Jupiter's atmosphere contains a massive amount of these valuable gases, free for the taking if you have the right technology. And then there is the issue of metals and minerals. To build ships, habitats and factories, you need a lot of metal. Iron, nickel, titanium and more. Where would they get these? The answer lies nearby. The main asteroid belt is located between Mars and Jupiter. This belt contains millions of asteroids, which are basically giant floating mines full of high-grade metals and minerals. From a base in the Jupiter system, it would be relatively easy and fuel-efficient to send robotic mining ships into the asteroid belt, load them up with raw materials and bring them back. But there is an even better source of asteroids. Jupiter has 2 massive groups of asteroids that are trapped in its own orbit. They are called the Trojan asteroids. There is one group that orbits ahead of Jupiter and another group that orbits behind it. These Trojan asteroids are a stable and convenient source of raw materials. They are much closer than the main belt, and they are always in the same general location relative to Jupiter. This would make setting up a continuous mining operation very efficient. It would be like having 2 giant, well-stocked warehouses right next door to your factory. This effectively gives the colonizers access to unlimited building materials. There is one more surprising resource that Ganymede offers right away. We mentioned its thin atmosphere. While it is too thin to breathe, scientists have discovered that this atmosphere is composed mostly of oxygen. It is thought that the constant radiation hitting the moon's icy surface splits water molecules, releasing the oxygen. This means that an arriving probe could begin extracting oxygen for life support immediately, right from the atmosphere. It would not even need to start drilling through the ice right away. It would have a breathable gas available as soon as it arrived. This is another small but significant advantage that makes Ganymede an even more attractive target. So, let's put it all together. If an alien civilization sets up a base in the Jupiter system, they have unlimited water for life support and fuel. They have access to vast quantities of hydrogen and helium from Jupiter's atmosphere for advanced technologies. They have effectively unlimited metals and minerals from the nearby asteroid belt and the Trojan asteroids. and they have immediate access to oxygen from Ganymede's atmosphere. This is everything a civilization would need to not just survive, but to thrive and to grow. They would be completely self-sufficient. They would not need anything from Earth. They could build a massive industrial and technological base, far from our eyes, before we even knew they were there. The resource-rich environment of Jupiter is the key to their entire strategy. If this object, 3I Atlas, is indeed an alien technology, a deliberate traveller, it raises a profound question. Where did it come from? The journey from another star to our Sun is an immense undertaking, a voyage across a vast and empty sea. So, if we are to speculate on its origins, we must look for logical candidates. Where could it have come from, this visitor from distant stars? While the universe is huge, we can make some educated guesses by looking at the stars closest to us. The space between stars is called the interstellar medium. It is not completely empty, but it is very, very close to a perfect vacuum. Travelling through this space is a long and lonely process. Our fastest spacecraft would take tens of thousands of years just to reach the nearest star. So, it is logical to assume that if a probe arrived here, it probably came from a star system that is relatively close by. It is not impossible that it came from across the galaxy, but a journey from a nearby star is much more likely. So, let's look at our stellar neighbourhood. The closest star system to us is Alpha Centauri, which is about 4.3 light-years away. It is actually a system of 3 stars. This is a very interesting candidate, of course, but there is another star that, for a few reasons, stands out as a particularly strong possibility. That star is called Bernard's star. Bernard's star is the second closest star system to us, after the Alpha Centauri system. It is a small, faint star known as a red dwarf. It is only about 596 light-years away from us. What makes Bernard's star so interesting? First, while it is close, it is also on the move. Bernard's star has the largest proper motion of any star in the sky. That means it is moving across our line of sight faster than any other star. But more importantly, it is also moving towards our solar system. It is getting closer to us. In about 10,000 years, it will make its closest approach to us, coming within about 3.75 light-years. A civilization living around Bernard's star might see our Sun as their own closest destination, a natural target for exploration. Let's think about the travel time. We know that 3I Atlas is moving at a very high speed, about 60 kilometers per second relative to our Sun before it got a gravity boost. If we assume a probe travelled from Bernard's star at a similar average speed, how long would the journey take? A light-year is a huge distance, about 9.5 trillion kilometers. The math shows that a trip of about 6 light-years at 60 kilometers per second would take roughly 30,000 years. This number is very interesting. It is a long time for humans, but it might not be a long time for a robotic probe or a civilization that thinks on much longer timescales. The observed speeds of interstellar objects like Oumuamua and 3I Atlas are consistent with a journey of this length from a nearby star. Another crucial piece of the puzzle is whether Bernard's star could even support life. For a long time, we did not know if it had any planets, but recent studies have suggested that it does. There is evidence for at least one, and possibly more, super-Earth-sized planets orbiting the star. A super-Earth is a planet that is larger than Earth but smaller than Neptune. The presence of planets makes Bernard's star a much more viable origin for advanced life. It is not just an empty star, it is a star system. It has worlds. And one of those worlds could potentially be home to a civilization capable of interstellar travel. Red dwarf stars like Bernard's star are also very, very old and stable. Our Sun is about 4.6 billion years old. Bernard's star is thought to be much older, perhaps between 7 and 12 billion years old. This means that life, if it started there, would have had billions of extra years to evolve and develop compared to life on Earth. It is not hard to imagine that a civilization there could be thousands or even millions of years more advanced than we are. For a civilization that old, a 30,000-year journey for a robotic probe might be a perfectly reasonable project to undertake. So Bernard's star fits the profile very well. It is close, it is moving towards us, it is known to have planets, and it is old enough to have potentially produced a very advanced civilization. While this is all just speculation, it is informed speculation. It is based on the facts that we know about our corner of the galaxy. If you had to pick one star system as the most likely point of origin for an interstellar probe visiting us, Bernard's star would be at the top of the list. Of course, it could have come from somewhere else. There are other nearby stars like Wolf 359 or Lalande 2185, or it could be from a star system much farther away. The probe could be much older than we think, a wanderer that has been travelling for millions of years. But the Bernard star hypothesis is a compelling one because it is so close and so plausible. It provides a neat and tidy explanation for where our visitor might have come from. It gives a name and a place to the potential senders of this mysterious object. It turns an abstract idea into a concrete possibility, connecting this visitor in our solar system to a specific named star in our night sky. Let's bring all these pieces together. We have followed a logical path from the object's arrival to its potential maneuver to its most strategic destination and even to its possible origin. If we combine all these elements, we can see a complete blueprint for an alien colonization, a plan so effective it could be described as a solar system checkmate. It is a strategy that would allow an alien force to establish a dominant and uncontested presence in our solar system, perhaps before we could even understand what was happening. The plan begins with the arrival. An interstellar probe, disguised as a comet like 3i Atlas, arrives in our solar system. It uses a stealthy approach, following a natural-looking gravitational path. It gathers data on the inner planets, like Mars and Earth, as it passes by, but it does not stop. Its primary mission is to reach the Sun. Step 2 is the critical maneuver. At Perihelion, its closest point to the Sun, it performs a single, highly efficient Oberth maneuver. It uses a small, precise engine burn to slow down just enough to be captured into a new orbit around the Sun. This move is designed to be subtle, hard to detect, but it completely changes the object's destiny. Step 3 is the journey to the new home. The new orbit is not random. It is a perfect transfer orbit, aimed directly at the most strategic location in the entire solar system, the Jupiter system. The probe then spends the next year or two travelling from the inner solar system to the kingdom of the giant planet. Step 4 is the establishment of the beachhead. The probe arrives at Jupiter and uses the planet's immense gravity, perhaps with another small engine burn, to insert itself into orbit around the moon Ganymede. This is the ultimate prize. Here, it has everything it needs: protection from its own magnetic field, a massive ocean of water for fuel and life support, low gravity for easy launches, and immediate access to oxygen from the atmosphere. From this single, powerful base on Ganymede, the expansion begins. This is step 5. Robotic ships, fueled by the water from Ganymede, are sent out. They establish secondary bases on the nearby moons of Europa and Callisto, securing even more water resources. Mining ships are sent to the Trojan asteroids and the main asteroid belt to begin harvesting metals and minerals on a massive scale. The industrial engine of a new civilization begins to roar to life, far from the prying eyes of Earth. This strategy offers uncontested access to vast resources. While humanity struggles to get small payloads off our own planet, this new force would have easy access to the resources of an entire solar system. They would control the fuel and the building materials. This is a powerful position to be in. They would not need to ask for permission. They would simply take what they needed from the uninhabited rocks and moons of the outer solar system. It is also the perfect launch point for reaching the rest of the solar system. From the low gravity of Ganymede, it is much easier to travel to Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune than it is from Earth. They could quickly expand their presence outwards, setting up listening posts and resource depots throughout the entire outer solar system. At the same time, they could send stealthy probes inwards to continue monitoring Earth, learning everything about us before they ever make contact. By establishing colonies across Jupiter's moons and the nearby asteroid belts, they would have a widespread distributed presence. They would not be limited to one single spot. This makes them much harder to attack or to contain. They would be a true solar system civilization, while we would still be a single planet species. This is the checkmate. It is a strategic move that corners the board. By taking control of the resource-rich and strategically dominant Jupiter system, they would effectively control the future of the entire solar system. This entire blueprint is based on logic and efficiency. It is what a smart, technologically advanced and patient colonizing force would do. They would not rush in with guns blazing. They would play the long game. They would build their power base quietly, in a place where we could not reach them. They would become the dominant power in our solar system before we even knew we were in a game. This is, of course, just a thought experiment. It is the what-if scenario pushed to its logical conclusion. The chances of it being true are very, very small. But it is a powerful story, because it shows how a deep understanding of physics and strategy could be used to achieve an incredible goal. And it is a humbling story, because it shows how vulnerable we might be. We spend so much time looking at ourselves, here on our small blue dot, that we might not notice a quiet, intelligent player setting up the board for a game we do not even know we are playing. This brings us to the end of our speculative journey. We have explored a wild idea, a possibility that is on the very edge of science fiction. The big what if. What if this is not just a comet? What if this is a probe? What if it is the first move in a silent strategic colonization of our solar system? We must be very clear. The evidence does not support this. The chances of this hypothesis being true are tiny, but thinking about it has profound implications. It forces us to look up and consider our place in the universe in a new way. If this highly unlikely alien hypothesis for 3I Atlas were to be true, it would change everything. The confirmation of advanced alien technology, right here in our own backyard, would be the single most important discovery in human history. It would be a moment that would unite all of humanity in a shared sense of wonder, and perhaps a shared sense of fear. Our entire understanding of our place in the cosmos would be turned upside down. We would know for certain that we are not alone. We would know that we are the new kids on a very old block. It would also raise urgent and very difficult questions. What are their intentions? Are they peaceful explorers? Are they resource gatherers who see our solar system as an empty warehouse? Or are they something more dangerous? These questions would move from the realm of science fiction to the front page of every newspaper in the world. Our future would suddenly feel much less certain. Humanity would have to decide how to react. Would we try to communicate? Would we prepare our defences? It would be a moment of global crisis and global opportunity. This is why the ongoing observations of 3I Atlas are so important. As it emerges from behind the Sun, our telescopes will get a clearer view than ever before. We will be able to study its light to see what it is made of. We will be able to track its path with incredible precision to see if it has deviated even slightly from its predicted course. These next few weeks and months are crucial for getting clear answers. The data we collect will either add more and more weight to the natural comet theory, or, in the tiniest of chances, it might show us something that we cannot explain. We must be patient, we must be methodical, and we must be open to whatever the universe chooses to show us. The story of 3I Atlas is a reminder that the universe is a vast, mysterious and surprising place. There are always new things to discover. Whether this object is a simple rock or something far more complex, its journey through our solar system has already sparked our imagination and pushed us to ask some of the biggest questions there are. What is out there, and are we ready for the answer? The search for that answer continues every night in observatories all around the world as we stare into the darkness, waiting for a signal, waiting for a sign, waiting for the truth. As we conclude this deep dive into the mysteries of 3I Atlas, we want to assure you of our commitment to bringing you the real story as it unfolds. Our channel is dedicated to keeping you 100% updated on 3I Atlas and all other important space news, and we will always base our reporting on real, verifiable data. We believe in separating the signal from the noise, the facts from the fiction. The universe is amazing enough as it is. We do not need to make things up. Our coverage goes beyond just interstellar objects. We look at the bigger picture. We believe that everything in space is connected. This includes tracking solar activity, like solar flares and coronal mass ejections, which can have a direct impact on our planet. We monitor space weather, which affects our satellites and power grids. We keep an eye on planetary alignments, exploring the subtle gravitational dance that all the planets in our solar system are engaged in. We see the solar system as a single, holistic system, where an event in one part can have effects in another. We also extend this holistic view to our own planet. We look at how energy from space might interact with Earth's own energetic systems. This includes studying patterns in seismic events, like earthquakes and volcanic activity. Our channel has a strong track record of looking at these connections and has, in the past, successfully forecasted periods of increased seismic activity based on our analysis of solar and planetary phenomena. We believe in looking at the whole system, from the Sun to the Earth's core, to gain a deeper understanding of the world around us. We are passionate about what we do, and we are grateful to have a community of curious minds like you to share this journey with. If you enjoy our approach of providing clear, data-based, and holistic news about space and Earth, we hope you will continue to support our work. This channel is a labour of love, and your support helps us continue to produce this content. One way to support us is by checking out our online store. We have created some unique items for our viewers. If you have been fascinated by our discussion today, you might like our exclusive Interstellar 3i Atlas shirt, which is a great way to show your interest in this historic event. We also have other unique items that reflect our channel's spirit. We have our own special herbal tea blends, designed to help you relax while you ponder the mysteries of the cosmos. We also have our popular Cosmos Within t-shirt, which is a reminder that the same elements that make up the stars also make up us. Every purchase, no matter how small, helps us to keep the lights on and to continue our research and reporting. We are committed to being your trusted source for news about our dynamic and ever-changing universe. We will continue to track 3i Atlas as it leaves the Sun's vicinity and becomes more visible to our telescopes. We will bring you any and all updates as they happen, good or bad, expected or unexpected. We will be here to analyze the data and to explain it to you in a way that is simple and easy to understand. But what if this wild idea is true? What's the smartest move for an alien visitor, and could we even stop them? Stay with us as we track 3i Atlas and uncover the real truth. Subscribe now and join our community exploring the universe's biggest mysteries.